Good evening. Welcome to the March 9th, 2022 meeting of Community Preservation Committee. Good to see everyone in person and not out in the parking lot as we were
Last meeting.
well, at least for historic anyway. That's how February was. We do have a quorum. We at the moment do not have a Parks and Fields representative, and we have all members present with the exception of Patty and John. Chairman's update. Thank you, Shirley, for providing an expenditure report. This shows all carryover funds for all previously approved community preservation projects, and when you have an opportunity, you can look at that. Hasn't been much activity recently, although I do have some bills to sign for some survey work that I'll put forward after this meeting. The next item on the agenda is approval of the November 2021 meeting minutes. Thank you, Shirley, for pulling the hard copies together. And when it's convenient, I'll entertain a motion on those minutes.
Having seen them online, I will offer a motion, without rushing anyone, a motion to approve the minutes as printed.
Second.
A motion by Phil, second by Alan. Any discussion on the November 10th minutes? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 600. The meeting minutes are approved. Thank you. Under old business, we have our, under 4A, we have our slate of open projects, and would welcome updates if members of the committee have them. I'll just run in order, and feel free if there's no update, we will revisit it at our next meeting.
Okay.
North End Cabins, Diane, hello.
So thank you for sending me that thread
Yes.
with, I sent the thread along to the commission, and they're gonna talk to Lisa and Todd and everybody about it. So one of the things that it said in it was that, the funds were to, help in addition to already budgeted.
Appropriate funds.
Unfortunately, given the budget, there isn't anything budgeted for it
Right.
because of where we're at. So she was gonna talk to them
Great.
about if it would be acceptable.
Great. The good news is that we've got other people also putting an eyes on this, so it's done correctly, and that's
Right, I think it will be able to happen. I
Great.
don't think that there'll be too much of a thing about it. One of the things that did need to be done was, before the work can be done, a tree fell on the cabin, on one of the north end cabins. So rather than pay somebody else to do it, they suggested purchasing a chainsaw and just getting that out there, but they wanted to know if that would be covered by the grant because it's needed for the improvement of the cabin.
And so I think just for the backstory for other members of the committee, we know the North End Cabins has been an ongoing project at Camp Quanah. We know that there was an approved project. And the key point, which I appreciate Diane's diligence on, is we know that CPA funds are not used for regular maintenance. And so Diane has been very good about keeping lines of communication open regarding if the rec commission were going to use existing personnel to do some of the work, that it can't drift into regular maintenance and it can't supplant money that the municipality has budgeted, etc. So that's what Diane had asked about. I had inquired with our friends at the Community Preservation Coalition, who provided an exhaustive answer to be careful, a thorough answer, make sure that it doesn't drift here. It is possible, but it's just going to be done correctly. So with folks at Town Hall assisting with that,
Yeah, I
that's
think
helpful.
it'll be fine.
Thanks, Diane.
Okay.
Bonnie House.
We're waiting. We have people that have said they would work on it and they haven't done it yet, so we're waiting.
And I would also add that Teresa chaired the Historic Commission meeting prior to this, and the consensus, and Teresa, you can correct me, the consensus of the commission would be to focus its efforts on the we have, I was a little off, Teresa, $10,766 left from a previous article for Bonnie House renovations. So the commission's focus is going to be to attempt to focus on electrical and attempt to make very specific electrical improvements with those available funds, and then the commission itself would end up talking about the next step. But this would, in theory, this initiative, this priority would then close out these funds. And of all the things that still need to be done on the interior of the body house, the item that is recommended at the top of the list is electrical work. So I would expect this committee, CPC, will hear back from Historic in the upcoming months, having secured the services of an electrician and be on a timeline to get those electrical upgrades done. We always like to see projects moving forward, so there's another example of that.
If you can find one.
Yep, exactly. Thank you, Alan. Thomas Mill.
I have an update. All the physical work that was needed to be done on the survey and bounding of the property is complete. As Tom indicates, there is an invoice that's about to be paid that will complete that work. And with that having been done, we created a Mylar of the property such that it could be recorded with the Registry of Deeds. And PDF of that has been sent to the Wildlands Trust, who in turn has shared that and all the other information with the state, because we do need to have and implement a working conservation restriction, or CR, on that. But again, all the work is done. We just are doing the paperwork now. So I anticipate pretty shortly, within a meeting or two, being able to close that project out after a very long time. It's one of our earliest projects, and soon it will be history in the best possible sense.
That's wonderful news. Thank you, Phil. I have Boterry Field Town Forest on here. I've noticed some improvements just from Route 58. Anything else Phil, on that?
The town forest part has been long done, and I do know that the Boterry Field part did get the signage up last year, and I'm not sure what the status is of anything else, but I hope that they're almost done. I don't know.
And I appreciate you giving these updates, Phil, because you're right in saying that the scope of what you were responsible for has concluded. If I'm not mistaken, and please correct me, I think there may have been a conversation going back a few meetings where the scope of at the time, the scope of the article included, I'm going to say landscaping improvements or substantive improvements in the area. And Eric Olson, the previous Parks and Fields representative, there may have been a conversation about whether or not the funds could be used to make any other improvements in the upper lot area. I'd have to go back and check. But I guess what I would say to the committee here is that if what Phil's reporting is that his piece of the work is done, then once we know that Parks and Fields has reconstituted itself as a committee and sends a representative to our committee, we may want to talk about, should we be closing this out, or is there in fact additional permissible work under this article?
Okay.
Right. Thank you. And Phil, for the park engineering plan?
No, not have a representative in Parks and Fields?
As of right now, Alan, we don't. I'm not sure of the full membership of the committee right now, but there were several resignations in the last few months, so it's in a bit of transition.
Okay, yeah. Kind of hard without somebody to tell us what's going on, you know?
Correct. Phil?
Okay, regarding the PCH Park Engineering Plan, I actually do not have any new updates on that. It's been very challenging for the reuse committee to meet in the last couple of months. We, at this point, are scheduled to meet next Monday, so I hope that very soon there will be more updates on that particular project.
Thank you. And Sleeper Preserve?
Well, this sounds a lot like the last update. The attorneys are getting closer than ever to completing all their work on the title of that. I have emails right up through this morning of some of the work they're doing, but we don't need to get into those details. But everyone is acutely aware of the fact that the grant that will pay for 2/3 of that does need to be done, and we will need to close on the property before June 30th in order to retain that
Did someone
grant.
say glacial?
The reasons, if you made a list of them, would be so long, you might make a glacier look small. But we're closer than ever. I have my little notes for what's going on lately. I call it the home stretch. But I won't be happy until it's completed, but that's all of that.
Understood. Teresa?
So I know that your focus has been on that preserve project, but just wanted to see if your committee has also been thinking about the offer or inquiry about the Story property on West Washington Street?
We have had pretty much zero bandwidth to add any new projects. We're acutely aware of that. We have not had anything substantive accomplished in that area. Thank you for bringing it up. It's important, but until other things are completed, it's hard to find, especially in conservation where we have only a part-time agent. We're part-time on everything, it seems like. We haven't been able to pursue that, but I hope the opportunity still remains when we can get to it.
Do you know if anybody contacted him?
I do not know. Sorry, I wish I did, but I don't.
Thank you, Phil. The trail grant, the PCH trail grant match?
Okay, activity on that. We actually have gone out to rebid the contractor work, which would be most of that project, because the original quote that came in was a little over 2 years ago, before we went into the COVID coma, so to speak, government-wise. But again, we've been in touch with the state agency from DCR, who provided some of the funding for that. That's a $100,000 grant besides the CPA portion. And we'll be providing them with an update on the project in writing next week. And what I'll do is I'll copy this committee on that update as well.
Thank you.
I think there'll be some things happening between now and next week that will be part of that update.
Excellent, thank you. Teresa, historical markers project?
So as everybody knows, that we were pretty set to do this as part of the 200th anniversary. Then it went on hiatus during COVID when the owner of the company who does the markers went to Europe and then decided to stay there during COVID and put it on halt. He came back but said the cost had gone up, and so unfortunately the cost went up about $1,200. So there was sort of a discussion about, I'm sorry, and that was based on materials. The metal backers and poles remain the same in terms of cost, and the highway department is also, the current highway department is on board. We were talking about actually putting in another supplemental application through the CPC to see, but we reached out instead to the 200th anniversary committee, who had some extra funds, and they're voting in 2 weeks to provide the extra funding. So I'm hoping and keeping my fingers crossed that we will have the full amount in 2 weeks and can move it forward over the summer.
Thanks, Teresa. Phil, Little Cedar Swamp?
Happy to report that the acquisition of the 9-acre piece there is complete. The land has been acquired and closed on, it's been recorded. So 100% of the community preservation funds allocated for that have been spent. I was looking at the sheet here, and I think it actually does reflect that. It says expend 65,000% expended, 100%.
There we go.
All that's left to do on the project per se is there'll be a little bit of survey work and bounding, which Conservation Fund will pay for. So this committee has completed its job on Little Cedar Swamp.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you, everyone, for those updates. Under old business, I have item 4B, a public forum discussion. This is not the public forum, but with some fits and starts going back a few months, where we left off was a rationale that we should set a date for a public forum which allows the public to give this committee feedback on community preservation priorities in the future. And the suggestion I had offered, knowing that we might not get a large public turnout necessarily, was to ask members of this committee who represent other committees and boards to ask their respective members, what do you think this committee, conservation, historic, parks and fields, etc., what might those respective boards suggest to us through their liaison could be something that they see on the horizon. With everything that is going on, it is tough to keep hold of the absolute top priorities. But I wanted to, using our face-to-face time tonight, I wanted to see if we could hit the reset button and say that if we made the public forum an agenda item for May, and we allowed members of this committee who represent boards to please speak to their respective boards and committees to be able to then come to the May meeting with feedback. So we would publicize it as an open forum to hear from the public. I think we had talked about maybe April, but given that, this would have been my stump speech in February if we had met, but so here it is in March. So if that's enough time, then we can still have, and we have a limited agenda in May, we'd have a forum, it would give us as a committee a chance to listen to the feedback of the committees, talk about the current plan priorities. Does that seem reasonable for those of you representing
Yeah.
committees?
That will cover our need for the public forum.
Yes, it will.
So-
We want a lot of.
So the May meeting would actually be the forum.
That's what I'm
Right.
thinking, yeah, Phil, that's what I'm thinking, because bear with me, so if I'm getting this, I don't have the calendar in front of me, but town meeting would be that Monday night, for whatever is on town meeting, so town meeting is that Monday, the first Monday of May, and then we meet on the following, the 11th, so May 11th would be the public forum, and we would limit the agenda, unless there was something else, but being the first meeting post-town meeting, we wouldn't have any active applications to act on at that point, so we can have a limited agenda.
Suggestion about that, so in terms of format, maybe communication. I wonder if it would be feasible if this committee has access to a laptop and a projector, if the various boards or groups that would be providing input could actually put together elements that would be in a PowerPoint presentation that could be presented and spoken about as images and so on are up on the screen. I think that would maybe present well if the public was tuning in from remotely or if they were here too. And it would, I think, make the project seem that much more real and understandable. And whether they're things that we've just completed or things that we anticipate doing, I think that format might help get our message out. That's just a thought. I don't know, I don't happen to have laptop and projector, but maybe such as would be available to us.
I think that's a reasonable request. Surely, my initial reaction would be, if we could make a note that we would ask the members of this committee by the end of, let's just say the end of April, or, if, in other words, if a committee member has some talking points and wanted to send them, then I could work with you, Cheryl, we could put together a collection, a PowerPoint, as Phil's saying, and then I could also figure out how we could get some technology in here as well for that meeting. That way, we don't need to have folks worried about creating their own separate presentations. We could have a slide for each represented committee, and I could add in a few slides on what the existing plan has. I think that's a good idea.
Makes it a little more comprehensive.
Yep.
And if you so chose, and if we were able to produce that, maybe it could be also linked to our website, and people could, even if they weren't able to view anything on the 11th, they could dial it up later and review it there.
Yep.
Just a thought.
Very good. Okay.
Can
PowerPoint.
you remind me who are the people who would be doing reports? I know I'm on Housing Authority,
I agree, conservation.
you're Conservation,
And-
We can't.
you're the camp, you're still the designation.
I'm actually at large, but,
You're a knowledge source.
I mean, I can do.
Parks and Fields would
Right, so-
maybe get somebody, but.
Yes, ideally.
Was it on the top on the stationery?
The names are, so Parks, Housing, Planning, which is John, Phil.
Planning was the one I was gonna
Yeah,
say.
Conservation and Historic. So those five committees would be the ones we would be seeking feedback from. And so that gives everybody 6 or 7 weeks. And we can pull something together, and if the technology doesn't work out, at the very least, we could have handouts of what is pulled together. But I think it's a reasonable way to record what we talk about. Diane?
At this forum, I just think it might be a good idea to have a slide just outlining what CPC actually does for people that are new to this forum and want to see what it's all about. For example, they might not know there should be a Parks and Rec representative and planning board.
So it's CPA 101
Yeah,
in
CPC for
a
numbers.
short message.
It's a recruitment drive, yes. to give
There we go. No, I just thought it would be a good idea because some people, are new.
Right.
And Shirley has been very helpful every year in tweaking we have a running list of completed projects, projects in progress, perhaps ones that have been recently approved. Every year, the last several years, she and I have worked to update them. It's a long-running document, but it tells a good story about what the town has done in the past as
right.
well.
So that they can get some ideas themselves. Right.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you all for that feedback. I'll move on to new business. Item 5A is just to bring to your attention that there was a Part A application submitted by NeighborWorks Housing Solutions about some exterior repairs on Hanson Group Home on 53 West Washington Street. This is not something that I don't have it on the agenda as an actionable item, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. This may be something for which a Part B is produced for the fall 2022. And if that does happen, we will have a more extended conversation on this. But this is really just for informational purposes tonight. And there's a lot of work that has to be done, similar to the North End Cabins Day, and the idea of what type of work is this, and what is inbounds and what could become maintenance and is out of bounds.
I did work on one of these group homes, and I know that some of them kind of get a little bit rough sometimes and damage a lot of stuff, and I'm sure they have the same problem there. So probably stuff that needs to be replaced, doors and things.
And so I will bring back to the full committee any additional information. So that item is just for your information for this evening. The second item under new business, item 5B, you would have been sent this information a little while ago, but this is coming from Hanson Little League. I've been in conversation with Adam Balachovic, who is affiliated not only with the Little League, but is also one of the members of the currently under construction Parks and Fields Committee. And so Adam's doing a lot of work on both fronts. I explained to Adam that at a recent meeting, we had talked about having a process as timely, but as timely as we can, that we may as a committee have some feedback to give a potential applicant. What I did in order to meet the March 4th deadline that the town set to have placeholder warrant articles is that we informed, Shirley helped me with this too, basically let the folks at Town Hall know that I'd asked them to just hold a space for this. We didn't have our February meeting. So what I would be looking for this evening, we can absolutely have a conversation on this Part B. You've had the information, but I would not be expecting you tonight if we're not ready to do it. At the very least, a vote to just confirm the placeholder article. And then we can talk about this tonight and come back again at our April meeting and ultimately take a vote, a recommending vote one way or the other. If the committee recommends it, then that's obviously going to be, that would be communicated. But for the purposes of the warrant and the printing, and if the committee doesn't recommend it, then we would simply pass over it and take no action. But I wanted to at least preserve some space on the agenda, at the very least to confirm that to take a vote on confirming the placeholder. So I'll open up for discussion if folks would like to talk about this application.
Well, I'll make a motion. I think there's some discussion about the application itself, but I'll make the motion to preserve the placehold on the warrant.
And this would be for the spring or the fall town meeting?
This would be for
Right.
spring.
Okay.
I'll
Yep.
second that.
All right, a motion, Teresa, second by Diane. So now we can have discussion on, we can have discussion on the placeholder, the subject of the motion, and then we can talk about the guts of the application. I don't mind if it kind of blurs together. Is there any discussion at least on the merits of a placeholder? Okay, if not, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. So we will confirm that the committee now, speaking as a group, has asked for the placeholder. Now we can certainly discuss the particulars of this article if you'd like to. This project application.
So I have two things.
Teresa?
One, I don't feel warm and fuzzy about the application, and that has nothing to do with the Hanson Little League, because they did a really nice application. and it's not fair to take it out on the Hanson Little League. I think the issue is that we keep running up against things that come to us that are the town's, it is requirement of the town to be handling these items, and they're not even making it onto the capital improvement plan. You know, they're not even being taken into account by the town. And, you know, that is my primary concern, is that we keep sucking up these projects that the town is not taking responsibility for. Again, I don't think we should penalize the Hanson Little League, who's trying to do something that's needed, but I question where the town is in this discussion and taking responsibility for town-owned property, that it should already have a plan in place for repair. So that gets back to our conversation we had in the fall about, you know, that Parks and Fields should have, get a request for the capital needs that went around to the departments. And we had our town administrator here, we suggested that those letters, when they're pulling together the capital plan, be sent to various committees that are working for the town. That didn't happen again this year. So these things keep getting left off of the town. So it's really, maybe it's less about this application and more about the process and why people, I think not just here at this committee, but also when it goes to town meeting, will say, well, why is the CPC paying for this? The other is just the amount of the contribution that the Little League is putting in. I think from you know, they're trying to save their money for their programs. I get that. From just getting it passed at the town meeting, they may want to try to add in some additional funds or in-kind to show that there is more support for the application, if that's possible.
Thank you, Teresa. Diane?
I agree with you, Teresa, on the town perspective, because we've been saying that with the camp for a long time. We either own it, or you either want to take care of it, or you don't. And I understand that.
And for instance, if they had it on their plan, if they said, we know it's there, we just can't pay for it, then I think this committee can say, okay, we've looked at your
We'll help you out.
plan, and we see what are the things that you can't pay for, so we can prioritize how
They're
we
not
spend this money.
acknowledging.
They're not even acknowledging it.
But I understand that. But again, we don't want to punish the little league.
I mean, the fence is horrible, it is a safety
I
hazard.
think it's a safety hazard. I think it's always been a safety hazard.
My concern was that it started off at 50,000, and then apparently they did it, and it was 30,000. And I'm just wondering how much research that they did. I mean, it sounded like they just kind of threw it together. It didn't sound like they did any really.
But these bids look good, did you see these bids?
They're all,
They
there
did.
was only one that I couldn't print out the first
But I mean,
time.
the information that I got, it just sounded like it's kind of a hurry-up slapdash thing, and I just thought it wasn't.
On part A.
On
The
part
first
A.
one, yeah.
They were probably doing that to get in on the deadline, maybe.
Okay, yeah,
or,
yeah.
You know, and then it
But
looks like.
I was curious how it got from 50,000 to 30,000. That's
Well,
quite a-
that shows you, I guess, that they actually did the research.
Yeah.
And-
So as part of their application, they do include quotes from
Yeah, I know the
December,
second one they did.
January, north or
And
south.
what was the contribution? I don't remember the contribution.
15.
Thank you, Diane. Yes, so out of a potential $30,000 project total, they were seeking 28,000. They are seeking 28,500
So they got.
with the difference of $1,500 contribution.
I have another question.
Phil?
Earlier tonight, I think I heard we were talking about the boundary between repairing things, I think it was on the housing piece, repairs and maintenance versus some identifiable sort of new project. Is this a repair, or is this something not repair, or is this?
That's an excellent question. It's an excellent question because I have the answer. But if the question was slightly off, I'd look foolish, but that's fine. Absolutely. In looking into this with our friends at the coalition, they made it clear that for it to be a CPA eligible project, we have to replace, it would have to be a replace. Repairing an existing fence would be out of bounds, it would be considered a
It's a
maintenance
whole
issue.
new fence, apparently.
It doesn't negate Teresa's points about who's responsible for funding it, and Diane's points as well. But to answer your question, Phil,
Okay.
inbounds if it's a replacement, out of bounds if it's a repair.
And I think that's because that they won't need it to come back.
I think this is a good application in the sense that it has the 3 quotes, but also the photos make a point.
Sure does.
it shows why
Picture's worth a
it
thousand
needs
words.
to, something needs to be done. The question, as we've said in different ways, is how do we do the thing that needs to be done, so, yeah.
Thank you. Any other, for now, are there any other comments on the application? Okay. So what I...
Can I just make,
Go ahead, Teresa.
and again, this doesn't go to their application, I think it just goes to the CPC if we recommend it going forward. I know that the town planner is looking at McQuon School and recommending that in fact the highway department be moved over to Botieri Field, and Botieri Field, the skate park and the basketball be moved over to McQuon. And so we should just at least know that that is a proposal right now, that's not set in stone, it could change a million times over, but that if somebody were to bring it up, if they knew that at town meeting, to say, why are you putting a fence there if you're planning on getting rid of, moving the Botieri Field over? I think the answer to that is, the fence is there now, they're playing baseball there now, that's a long-term plan, and there's safety issues now, but I think it's something to at least be aware of.
Yeah, and that's a recent development, so thank you for updating the committee on that. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll just close by saying that in my communications with Adam, I said that he certainly was welcome tonight. I explained that we would probably just have an initial discussion at best, but I'll ask him if he's available to come to our April meeting to give him a direct opportunity to address this. But the feedback that I will give him is to, and please tell me if I'm off on the summary, but it sounds like just an observation about the low contribution, a general concern about the town's responsibility and it being absent from longer range capital planning, and the potential for, at some point in the future, a more drastic change of, is this a short-term investment of a fence in an area that might no longer be within a few years? Not that that's the driving point, but I think those were the three major things that I heard.
I think the fourth is that if he, as a representative of the Parks and Fields Commission, joined the CPC, he would have an extra vote in his pocket.
It's in itself. So perhaps, and going also back to Alan's point, the idea that if the Parks and Fields Committee could organize itself and appoint a member,
Yes.
and we get confirmation that that person has been appointed, that representative could join us at the, whether it's Adam or someone else, but that committee would have direct representation and voting rights on this
Yeah, it would
committee as
seem that
well.
they would, if they want funds from us, they should have somebody that would come in and attend.
But it
the
is
meeting.
Little League that's applying, not Parks and Rec.
Not Parks
Oh,
and Rec.
Yeah.
Little
They are a
League, okay.
separate entity.
Separate
Yes.
entirely.
Yeah.
But Adam
Yeah.
sits on both.
With overlapping
Okay,
interests.
so they're not, that, Little League is not under Parks and Fields, that's
Right,
a private.
they're private, right,
Private,
they started it
okay.
themselves. But still, it'd be nice to,
One would think that
make the
their
process
thoughts
walk
on
more
both.
smoothly, I bet, and quicker.
Right, we've talked about how in the absence of a governing body weighing in on an application, that this committee wants to hear from the committee closest to that project, what those folks feel about it. So, in any event, Shirley, I know you'll help keep me honest on those 4 points, that I'll communicate that accurately, and then we'll have it on the agenda. And it'll be at our April meeting that we can decide how we want to proceed.
And is to Phil's point, is this filled out correctly, that number B project description, that it's a rehabilitation, restoration? If it's a new construction,
Yeah.
should it be creation, or?
Yeah, I would, and Teresa's looking at page 1 in the second
Right.
box in the middle. I would agree, and that category, rehabilitation, restoration, is generally used, I think, for historic purposes, so that's
Yes.
probably inaccurate. I can convey that as
So
well.
should it go under
Creation?
I would agree,
Yeah.
because it would be a new fence in this case, so we'll provide that feedback as well. Okay.
And it does say that they could provide 5% of total project.
Under 2D, it does say that. Excellent. Okay.
If necessary.
All right.
I actually have a question too. Which town plan does this align with open space? It's actually nice to see someone recognize that we have an open space and recreation plan. It's for both categories, and chronically for the last 15 years or so, it's been hard to get input from the recreation interests in town. And at least this project shows that this form it's more, I should make the comment, the form should say open space and recreation plan, because that's the name of the plan. I would say that the fence in this area might not be quite the pure definition of open space, but it's certainly open space and recreation. Maybe we're trying to save space on here, but
We probably
we
were
should
at the
update the
time.
form.
Yeah, how open is the space if there's a fence we're putting in? It just doesn't seem,
Well,
we got
But the recreation needs to be recognized, I think, on
the full title of the
application.
plan.
Yeah, the
This is
form.
Delineating.
This is a little off the subject, but we're talking about fields and so forth. I read something about the middle school getting a huge grant that would allow them to do an artificial turf field over there.
Not artificial.
Not artificial.
Yeah,
But
so.
but they got a sizable grant, I guess, from the state.
Really,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Well,
200,000.
And kudos to Pepper Santalucia
Yeah.
and Adam for reaching out to Senator
gonna be-
Mike,
it'll be a
Senator
turf
Mike
field.
Brady.
It'd be a regular turf field, right?
I'm not sure that they've decided that it would be turf.
Well, I have a problem with the artificial turf. It's only good for 10 years. And these are just kids, you know, and kids don't mind playing soccer on grass. I mean, they don't need,
I think they're still figuring out the design aspect of it. That's
Okay.
not,
Yeah,
I'm sure they're gonna
that,
look to get the most bang for their buck.
I think it's the,
I'm
it's,
concerned about it getting such, the price getting so high that it doesn't get done. And if they did a grass field, they could do it.
yeah. Yeah, so we would, again, I think, my sense from talking to Adam is that when that committee gets up and running, it's gonna be a priority topic, and they're going to do their best to take that and articulate a very clear plan, and to what extent this committee gets brought back into the conversation, they would have to reapproach us. The article that was passed over at the previous town meeting is not, that article is, that it will be a separate application. They would be looking at it with fresh eyes and then approaching us separately with whatever plans they may come up with. But for now, we don't have a current application on the Hanson Middle School fields or anything from Parks and Fields at this point. So fresh eyes on that with a little bit of, I don't want to say seed money, because that might sound like natural turf, but I didn't mean that. You know, just seed money to get the design part started.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. So that's the last item on the agenda. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before we entertain a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I probably should have it somewhere in my filings, but now that we're about to expend a little bit of money to close out a project and probably another one too, could we get an update or maybe email around between now and our next meeting of what's in our the community preservation set of accounts
Yes.
available now, so that whatever has come in lately from the state and from town receipts, and also what we've already had and what we expended, it will help us, I think, plan our discussions approaching the forum for maybe ideas in the near future.
I agree.
What do we have to work with, that sort of thing.
I agree. And Shirley, if that's something, Todd has been very good about providing. Todd runs 2 reports for us. One is what you more commonly see, which is a
That was the one I had, we
Project.
did that last month.
And this is through,
I think what,
I know it's probably not.
probably through 131, so it's pretty recent, but maybe there'll be changes at the end of, February or March.
so there are 2 reports. What has changed on the approved projects being drawn down? And then the other question which Phil was asking is, we have a series of accounts, undesignated, open space, historic, et cetera. And we do get periodic updates on what amount of money is there that has not been earmarked. And that's, we can definitely provide an update on that. That oftentimes changes after a town meeting. When a project gets approved, we begin to earmark those funds. But we can ask, and then we can circulate that information.
Sure.
I have one other
Teresa.
thing as well. I'm just wondering if we can change our application to reflect the current commission too? Does Karen
Yeah, it's
should be on there?
It's overdue. It's overdue. I think that's a fair point. And so we can without, the masthead, if you will, on both A and B, we can update that. Shirley, do I have the Word document of that? I know we've,
I was just gonna make a suggestion, do the names need to be on there?
Right, 'cause they,
I mean, it
they
just
turn
seems,
over.
every, you know, a year goes by and now it's out of date again, so I thought about that in the
yeah,
past.
I
Or even
also,
less than a year if someone has to resign.
Right,
Right, let's just take the names.
But what you could do is, instead of having the names say, you know, however many
At
at-large,
large.
3 at-large, and then put representatives from these commissions, so that if somebody was
Without
looking at,
signing the specific names.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
I would suggest, Shirley, that if you don't mind taking some editorial license with that, and we could bring it back to the April meeting, as well as making the change that Phil suggested regarding references to open space on both Part A and Part B, we could properly put it as open space and recreation.
Right. Because there's a little space.
And if there is, and if open space is referred to elsewhere in the documents, we can do a word search on that and see.
Well, actually, this is the place, it just says, which plan does it align with?
Okay, so it's just-
Later on, the category of the project might be either recreation.
Oh, got it.
Or it could be both.
Yeah.
So it's on 2C, on Part A and Part B, which we asked the same question, which town plans does the project align with?
Right, exactly. That is an
So the-
official plan that's on the shelf and it's available to read, that's the name of the plan.
Yeah.
Just correct the name, that's all.
Yeah. So
We
we'll
could
make,
also, we could add, if you're gonna add, that housing production plan that
Ah.
we finished and did.
well, that didn't exist, that didn't
I
exist when we
know,
came up with this
We could add that on
application.
since we've done one.
Shirley, I'll follow up with you on that.
Mhm.
Very good, okay. All right, well, thank you, everybody, and with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
made, seconded, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? We are adjourned 7:45.
Thank